Hello, my name is Tom Wilkinson and welcome to the Thinking in English podcast, a podcast for intermediate to advanced level English learners. Today we are going to talk about the history of New York City. New York is one of the most famous cities in the world. Its history is interesting and important, and I think also relevant for people learning English. Why? Because by learning New York's history, you can understand more about American culture and language. You might remember my episode about the history of London from a few weeks ago. Like London, New York has a long and exciting past. But while London's history goes back thousands of years, New York's story is a little more recent, but equally fascinating. So in this episode, we will explore how New York grew from a small settlement into the big city it is today. You can find a full transcript for this episode for free on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and my website. You can also access an ad-free version of this episode on Patreon, both in audio and video form. Here is today's vocabulary list. Settlement. Settlement. A small community or village where people establish homes. For example, the Dutch built a small settlement called New Amsterdam on the southern tip of Manhattan Island. Colony. Colony. A country or area controlled by another, more powerful country. For example, in the 1600s, New York was part of a British colony in North America. Immigration. Immigration. The process of coming to live in a different country. For example, during the 19th century, immigration helped New York City grow rapidly. Symbol. Symbol. Something that represents a larger idea or meaning. As in, the Statue of Liberty is a symbol of freedom and opportunity for many people. Skyline. Skyline. The outline of a city's buildings against the sky. For example, New York has one of the most famous skylines in the world, filled with tall skyscrapers. Iconic. Iconic. Widely known and recognized as important. For instance, the Empire State Building is an iconic part of New York's architecture. Before New York was a big city, the land was home to Native American people, called the Lenape. They lived in the area for thousands of years. The Lenape hunted, fished, and lived in small villages. In the early 1600s, European explorers arrived and things changed. The Dutch were the first Europeans to explore the area. In 1609, Henry Hudson sailed into the river that now has his name, the Hudson River. The Dutch built a small settlement called New Amsterdam on the southern tip of Manhattan Island, between the years 1624 and 1626. This was the beginning of New York City. It is important to remember that New York City is just one part of New York State, which is a much larger area. This episode focuses on the city, which grew around the island of Manhattan, New Amsterdam, and nearby areas. In 1664, the English took control of the city from the Dutch. They renamed it New York, after the Duke of York. The Duke of York later became King James II of England. This change from Dutch to English control was very important because it shaped the city's language, laws, and culture. From this point onwards, New York City started to grow quickly as an English-speaking colony. However, the Dutch influence in New York continued for a long time. For example, one of my favourite facts is that the USA has only had one president who was not born a native English speaker. Martin van Buren, who was raised in a Dutch-speaking community in Kinderhook, New York, and primarily spoke Dutch at home. He had to learn English as a second language. After becoming part of the English colonies, New York City quickly started to grow. Its location was perfect. It had a deep harbour, was close to rivers, which made it an ideal place for ships to trade goods and arrive. Merchants from Europe, the Caribbean, and other parts of America came to buy and sell. The city became one of the most important ports in the British colonies. By the 1700s, New York was already a busy and diverse place. People from many backgrounds lived there, including English, Dutch, German, African, and Caribbean communities. Like other cities at the time, slavery existed in New York, of course, and many enslaved people were forced to work in homes or on farms and at the port. In the late 1700s, the American colonies began to fight for independence from Britain. New York played a major role in the American Revolution. In 1776, the Declaration of Independence was signed in Philadelphia, but New York City was seen as a key location. After the American forces lost an early battle, the British Army took control of New York City. The British occupied the city for most of the war, from 1776 to 1783. During this time, many buildings were destroyed by fires, and life was obviously difficult for people living there. When the war finally ended and the United States became independent, New York began to grow again. In fact, for a short time, New York City was the first capital of the United States. In 1789, George Washington even took his oath to become the first president in New York. After independence, the city developed quickly. It became a symbol of the new country's hopes and future. More people started to move to New York looking for opportunities. During the 19th century, New York City changed rapidly. It became one of the fastest growing cities in the world. One of the main reasons for this growth was immigration. Millions of people from Europe came to the United States during this time, and many of them arrived through New York City. They were escaping poverty, hunger, war, or just looking for better lives. The journey to the Americas was difficult, but New York was seen as a city of hope and new beginnings. In 1825, the opening of the Erie Canal helped New York grow even more. The canal connected the Atlantic Ocean through the Hudson River to the Great Lakes in the center of the USA. This made it easier to move goods across the country, and New York became the most important trade and business city in America. By the mid-1800s, large groups of Irish immigrants arrived, especially during the Irish potato famine. Later, people from Germany, Italy, and Eastern Europe also came in huge numbers. Many Jewish people escaping persecution in Europe also settled in New York. These immigrants brought new cultures, languages, food, and traditions to the city. They often lived in crowded neighborhoods and worked in difficult, low-paid jobs. Life was hard, but over time, immigrant communities helped build the city's identity and strength. In 1892, Ellis Island opened as the main immigration station. Millions of people passed through Ellis Island, and the nearby Statue of Liberty became a powerful symbol of freedom and opportunity. By the end of the 19th century, New York was not just a major American city, it was a global city. New York culture is still characterized extensively by the influence of its immigrant communities, especially the Italian and Jewish groups, who make up a large part of New York's population. In the 20th century, New York City again continued to grow and change. One of the most iconic parts of New York is its skyline, the view of tall buildings from a distance. New York began building skyscrapers, very tall buildings made of steel. The Empire State Building, completed in 1931, became the tallest building in the world at the time, and a symbol of American progress. New York was also a center of culture, and the city became famous for Broadway theater, jazz music, art and literature. In the 1920s, a cultural movement known as the Harlem Renaissance celebrated African American art, music and writing. New York was seen as a place where creativity and new ideas could grow. In the 1930s, the Great Depression caused major problems across the US, including in New York. Many people lost their jobs and homes. Still, the city remained strong and slowly recovered. During World War II, New York was an important city for production and organization. After the war, the city became the headquarters of the United Nations, showing its importance on the global stage. The second half of the 20th century brought both progress and problems. New York remained a center for business, media, fashion, and finance. Wall Street, located in Manhattan, became the heart, the center of the world's financial system. But the city also faced serious challenges. Crime increased, poverty spread, and in the 1970s, New York nearly ran out of money. Many people left the city, and some neighborhoods became very poor and dangerous. However, it was in this context that a lot of modern culture developed. Hip-hop, rap music, and breakdancing, for example, were all born out of New York's stagnation in the 1980s. Today, New York City is one of the most famous and influential cities in the world. People often call it the city that never sleeps because it is always busy day and night. Over 8 million people live in New York City, and they come from almost every country in the world. In fact, more than 200 languages are spoken in the city. New York is made up of 5 boroughs: Manhattan, Brooklyn, Queens, the Bronx, and Staten Island. Each one has its own identity and unique communities. The city is still a major center for finance, media, culture, art, education, and politics. Wall Street remains at the center of the world's financial markets. Times Square, Central Park, and the Broadway theaters are famous tourist destinations. Museums, galleries, and universities still attract people from around the globe. At the same time, though, New York faces serious challenges. Housing is incredibly expensive in New York City, and there is a growing gap between the rich and the poor. The city also continues to deal with the effects of climate change. In recent years, stronger storms and hurricanes and rising sea levels have caused emergencies in the city. And of course, the terrorist attacks on September 11th, 2001 deeply affected the city. The World Trade Center was destroyed and thousands of lives were lost. The 9/11 Memorial and Museum remind people of that day and of New York's strength in recovering from the tragedy. Despite these challenges, New York is still seen as a place of opportunity and freedom. For many immigrants, artists, entrepreneurs, the city is a place to follow your dreams. So here is today's final thought. New York City has a fascinating history. From its early days as a Native American land and Dutch settlement, to its role in the American Revolution, and its massive growth through immigration and trade, New York has always been a city of change and opportunity. In the 20th century, New York became a global center of business, culture, and politics. And today it remains one of the most diverse and exciting cities in the world. For English learners, Understanding the history of New York can help you understand American culture, values, and language better. And New York is one of the cities that I really want to visit in the future. I've never been to the USA, I've never been to the Americas, but one day I hope to visit New York and experience the culture, the food, and the history. But what do you think? What are your thoughts on New York City? And actually, what city should I discuss next time? I've done Nagasaki in Japan, I've done London, and now I have done an episode on New York. What should come next? Leave a comment on this episode on Spotify, on YouTube, or on Patreon or Discord. I'd like you all to become Patreon subscribers if possible. Every Friday there are extra episodes released, bonus episodes. We also hold conversation clubs on Tuesdays and Thursdays, currently doing 6 a week, and also a film club on Wednesdays. All of this is available in the various Patreon subscriptions, so head over to Patreon, patreon.com/thinkinginenglish, and become a subscriber, support the podcast, and improve your English. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll speak to you all next time. Goodbye.